"Uncle, can I hide here?" The tiny voice seemed lost amid the growl of engines, yet it was enough to make 12 tattooed men in the garage snap their heads around. On the outskirts of Dallas, 2 a.m., a weak neon light flickered against the tin roof, while the oil-stained concrete mirrored the broken glint of steel. The rolling door had just lifted halfway, letting the night wind sweep in the smell of gasoline and dust. A 6-year-old girl stood at the threshold, clutching a pink cat backpack nearly half her size. Her hair was slick with sweat, knees scraped, shoes frayed at the edges. She trembled, but her eyes didn't. Bright, steady, like someone who had survived too many long nights no adult knew about. Facing her was Mason Cole, leader of the Iron Faith Riders, leather jacket unbuttoned, face rugged but calm. "What's your name?" Mason lowered his voice. Lily Martinez. My dad's coming, and the men with him have guns." She swallowed hard. Mom said, "If something bad happens, find the people who look scary but can fight monsters." In the workshop, Hawk slid the door down a bit. Snake quietly locked the back. The screech of car tires from afar grew louder, clawing the pavement like fingernails on steel. On the stainless steel table beside them, Lily carefully set down an old camera, a pink cat-shaped USB, and a kitchen knife with dried blood. Her eyes swept across the room, as if choosing sides. Then she stepped back and stood behind Mason. Outside, 3 headlights split from the road like the eyes of a nocturnal beast. Inside, everyone's breath thinned. "You're safe here," Mason said softly. "And if we must, we'll fight the way good men do." Mason Cole, 38, was once a street racer who took too many wrong turns. After a crash that took his best friend's life, he left the noise behind and gathered others like him, broken, bruised, but breathing, and formed the Iron Faith Riders. They repaired engines, towed wrecks, rebuilt the bent frames of old Harleys, and quietly, the bent frames of their own lives. There was Hawk, the ex-Marine built like a wall, Snake, the grease-stained mechanic who moved like a cat, Deacon, the quiet man with prayer verses inked across his arms, Doc, the medic mechanic, Tank, Ace, Bishop. Each was a walking scar. They no longer tried to prove they were tough. They learned to be useful, to tighten the right bolt and the right heart. The night Lily appeared, Mason saw something familiar in her eyes, the look of someone who had been forced to grow up fast just to stay alive. At 6 years old, she carried what adults called evidence. 47 quick snapshots taken in the kitchen, the hallway, the living room, bruises changing color, a woman's fading eyes. She also carried a USB her mother called the grown-up's notebook, full of numbers, names, and money trails. "Where's your dad?" Mason asked. "I think he's bad," Lily said, each word scratching out of her dry throat. "Mom said the police won't believe unless there are lots of pictures. She taught me how to take them. If she sleeps forever, I'm to find good people." The garage went silent. Lily's small courage felt like a finger pressing against each man's chest. Mason rested a hand on the table's edge, staring at the tiny USB. He knew, sometimes the heaviest things in the world can fit into a child's pocket. Engines tore through the night. 3 black sedans swung sharply into the yard, headlights bleaching the metal walls, making the skull emblem on the Iron Faith Riders' jackets flash like lightning before fading again. Car doors burst open. Miguel Martinez stepped out, staggering, yet his eyes sharp, the way a man looks when he's used to others' fear. The 2 men beside him, pressed shirts, shiny shoes, clean jaws, didn't need an introduction. The way their hands hovered near their waists said enough about what they carried. "Where's the kid?" Miguel shouted, his voice reeking of whiskey even from 10 yards away. "She took my stuff. Hand her over." "There's a child here," Mason said, not moving from his place, shielding Lily. "If you want to talk, drop your weapons." Miguel laughed through his teeth. "My weapon is the rule book. That USB is 3 years of ledgers. If the cops get it, you'll learn how to stay silent with thorns. I want the girl. I want what's mine." Hawk stepped forward half a pace, blocking Miguel's line of sight. Snake glided along the wall, one hand brushing the back of a chair as if marking an escape route. Deacon checked the zip ties in his pocket. On the table, Lily's camera stayed open on photo number 01, its tiny green light blinking like an unblinking eye. Lily gripped Mason's sleeve. She didn't cry. "I'm not going, Dad," she said, voice clear and steady. "Mom sleeps forever because of you. I have the pictures. I'll show them to the police." The air between them tightened like a stretched string. One wrong move, and everything would snap. "You think we'll leave witnesses?" one of Miguel's men muttered, lifting his shirt just enough to show the gun handle. The quiet houses across the street stood complicit, pretending not to hear. And amid that silence, a 6-year-old stood tall. Mason inhaled, eyes turning cold again, the kind of cold forged by years of survival. "No one touches the kid," he said. "Not tonight, not ever." When Miguel raised his gun half an inch, time seemed to slow. Mason yanked Lily down, shoulder turning into the barrel's line just as the bullet ricocheted off an oil drum with a dry clang. Hawk charged like a rolling wall, crushing the right-hand man's arm until the wrist twisted and the gun clattered away. Snake's movement was a blur, a leg hook, a sharp pivot, 2 blows done in 3 breaths. Mason stood at the center, body open like a shield. He wasn't trying to look cool, just solid enough that a child wouldn't fall. Miguel lunged, shoving at Mason, but Deacon was there, foot locking Miguel's ankle, hip turning to block his axis. Miguel's body dropped like a snapped branch. Doc was already beside him with zip ties, hands moving fast as if fixing a belt. Click, click, clean and final. In the chaos, Lily crawled to the table. Miguel's gun lay 2 steps away. She stared at it like a snake with its tail cut off. Mom had said, "Dangerous things, touch them with 2 fingers and leave them where everyone can see." Lily pinched the gun with 2 fingers, set it beside the camera and the USB. "This is evidence, too," she whispered, voice eerily calm. Sirens wailed closer. Red and blue lights flashed across the corrugated roof. Mason raised his hands, speaking loudly enough for the police mic to catch. "Minor is safe. 3 suspects detained. Weapons secured. 47 abuse photos and 1 USB suspected of money laundering records." After handcuffs, statements, and evidence tags, the police handed Lily over to Margaret Whitfield, a social worker. In the temporary restroom, Margaret watched Mason through the glass wall, the leather-clad man standing by, eyes fixed on the door where Lily sipped milk. "You know I have to take her," Margaret said as she entered. "I know," Mason replied plainly, "but the kid chose to be here, and we chose to stand with her." "This place is a biker club with criminal records," Margaret said dryly. "The state doesn't grant shelter licenses like this." Mason sighed, for once looking tired. "The law was written to protect children," he said, still watching Lily's small hands around the milk cup. "If the law hasn't caught up with the fact that the scariest-looking people can sometimes be the safest, then I hope you'll look through Lily's eyes first." The door opened. Lily stepped out, her tiny hand gripping Mason's jacket. "I choose to stay," she said, looking straight at Margaret. At least, until I'm not scared of the night anymore. The garage began learning how to breathe like a home. Wires got wrapped, sockets covered, tool cabinets locked. The fridge lost beer, gained milk and yogurt. Shelves filled with crayons, comic books, and first aid kits. At night, Disney songs mingled with classic rock, making the skulls on their jackets look a little less fierce. Lily still feared the dark. Some nights she woke screaming, calling for her mother. Chains, the biggest guy, would awkwardly sit on the edge of her cot, voice rough as sandpaper. "Monsters are real, kid, but they're scared of us. If they come, I'll roar louder." The clumsy line somehow felt like a warm blanket over her sleep. A week later, she fell ill with fever. Doc took shifts checking her temperature every hour. Snake kept changing the cool towels. Hawk carried her back and forth along the hallway so she could breathe easier. When morning light crept through the cracks, Lily opened her eyes to see 12 men collapsed around her bed, each still holding a thermometer, a cup of water, a comic book. "You guys stayed all night?" she croaked. Mason smiled wearily. "Family stays." Margaret arrived unannounced and saw the scene. The doubt in her eyes cracked a little. She still followed protocol. Safety check, meetings with police, consultation with experts. But every time she returned, she noticed details the forms couldn't capture. A helmet stickered with stars to fit Lily's head. A crayon heart drawn on the wall where a repair schedule once hung. A booster chair by the table. Something no garage had ever needed. 6 weeks later, the family court convened. The state prosecutor listed prior offenses, voice sharp. Mason's lawyer spoke evenly. In 6 weeks, the defendants provided stability, safety, basic medical care, and an unofficial yet effective therapeutic environment. The core evidence, the child's trust. Judge Anita Brooks leaned back, looking at Lily between Mason and Hawk. "You understand what's happening, don't you?" "Yes, ma'am." Lily stood, pulling on her hoodie. "Some people think my new home looks scary, but I can sleep here. I'm not scared of the night when my uncles take turns guarding the door. I want to stay, if the court allows." Margaret took a deep breath. 30 years in social work, she said slowly. "I've never seen a child recover like this in such a short time. I recommend granting long-term guardianship to Mr. Mason Cole." The gavel struck. The garage didn't cheer. It just went still, like destiny had quietly answered. Lily hugged Mason, her small heart pounding against the thick leather. For the first time, she said, "Dad." 1 year later, Lily's pink cat backpack no longer carried knives or USBs. Inside were crayons, paper, an emergency contact card, and a disposable camera to help any other child who might need to record the truth, just as her mother once taught her. The Iron Faith Riders launched the Little Warriors program every Saturday, teaching self-defense, how to say no, how to find safe adults. They partnered with local police on domestic violence cases, not to be heroes, but to stand beside those who tremble alone. Mason often told his crew, "We're not saving the world. We're just guarding one small corner so tonight one more kid can sleep." Lily's story reminds us that kindness doesn't need a cape. Sometimes it wears a helmet, a leather jacket, and uses strength not to intimidate, but to protect. Kindness doesn't erase the darkness, but it holds the door, keeping it from spilling into a child's home ever again. If Lily and the Iron Faith Riders' story touched you, help it go further. Like, to send more kindness stories to those who need them most. Share, to remind anyone afraid of the dark that safe adults still exist out there. And comment. What, in your eyes, turns someone who looks scary into a gentle father? Your answer might be the small light someone lost in the dark. Don't forget to subscribe to Kindness Stories 365, where every day, one true act of kindness is told in a language everyone understands: the heart.